Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Is it possible that some of the life forms that visit this planet, that have came to this planet over the decades, that have been reported, that maybe they're not insect in nature or reptilian in nature or mammalian in nature, maybe that some of them could be plant-based in nature? That's what we're going to talk about today. There was a case that happened back in 1966 in Oregon, where the creatures that someone encountered, two people, two young girls, walking home one night, they looked like tree stumps with roots for legs. So that's what we're going to talk about, and then we'll take it from there. And this should be a lot of fun. Here's an article. This is from the Obscure Urban Legend Wiki. And it's called, the title of this article is The Newport Stumps. It says here, the Newport Stumps sighting was an extraterrestrial sighting that took place on April 5th, 1966 in Newport, Oregon, near the port city of Newport. A 16-year-old girl named Kathy Reeves and her unnamed friend encountered such strange creatures that night that at first they could not even accurately describe. During the evening journey home, the pair suddenly had the impression that someone or something was watching them from the darkness. When the girls looked back, they noticed a light similar to a dim flashlight. So they thought that some boy was trying to frighten them for fun, so they plucked up the courage and started throwing stones toward the unknown light. At that moment, however, the dull light turned into a dazzling spotlight, which already greatly frightened both girls. They both then noticed that a kind of dome-like object, about the size of an average room, had landed on the road. This object also emitted a distinct red light and emitted thick plumes of smoke. After that, the couple preferred to retreat quickly and try to arrive at the Reeves house as soon as possible. However, when they ran in the opposite direction from the strange object, their path was suddenly blocked by three bizarre creatures that did not resemble anything earthly. Kathy later described to authorities and the media three little stumps without heads that ran quickly down the road on many spider-like legs. Adding to the strangeness of the case, Kathy also added that the creatures were wearing brightly colored suits in orange, blue, yellow, and melon red. The creatures then ran off somewhere into the field, to which, of course, the girls ran away screaming. Now, this case got a lot of attention back in the day. There was a lot of local newspapers were talking about it, and it didn't end there. There was a lot of strange activity that was reported after this event happened. And here's an article from Kara Newcastle from her blog site newcastle.wordpress.com. I'll leave the links to all these articles so you can check them all out for yourself. And she talks about what happened afterward. The paparazzi and cops weren't the only visitors either. Basically, the family was inundated with reporters asking questions, and but there was other things that happened. Almost immediately following the sightings of the tree stumps, the lights, and the dome structure, Kathy and her family began seeing strange orange lights hovering both inside and outside their house. They also reported poltergeist-type phenomenon, though they had never claimed to have had any ghostly activity in their house prior. Over the next few weeks, the Reeves neighbors and others in their town began reporting more orange orbs, strange lights in the sky, and creepily, tall cyclops-like beings walking through the nearby woods. They never saw any more tree stump creatures, though. Skeptics might have dismissed these sightings and events as mass hysteria, but the local deputy sheriff had no doubt about the weird things happening in his county. Deputy Sheriff Thomas Price reported seeing a massive orange orb, bigger than any star, floating in the night sky above Kathy Reeves' house. "I know it wasn't a meteor or satellite because it was maneuvering," he said, adding, "there was a noise like a giant spinning top." The widespread reports of UFO and poltergeist activity soon drew the attention of the scientific community. A chemist named Max Taylor was particularly interested in what was going on and began his investigation by camping out in the front yard of the Reeves home. That very first night, he witnessed two large blue-colored orbs perched along the roof. After 6 months of this craziness, Kathy and her family sold their house and they moved. Their old home was purchased by a new family who, oddly, reported that no unexplained activity took place while they were there. Things in town gradually calmed down, though the reports of strange lights and creatures tallied somewhere around 24 items in the end. Even with all the other reported events going on, the thing that gets the most interest is, of course, the walking tree stumps. Of all the weird alien reports, these guys take the cake. And based on what I've read, there has never been a sighting of day-glow-colored plantigrade tree stumps before or since. So what the hell? Short of being baby Ents, what were they? Yes, of course, Ents, the sentient trees that were featured in the Lord of the Rings books. That's what she's talking about there. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I mean, I guess here's the thing. Is it possible? Is it possible that some of the creatures, usually the creatures that people run into here, I know there's still a debate on where they come from. Of course, I believe that it's extraterrestrial, but hey, that doesn't make me right. They could be crypto-terrestrial, they could be ultra-terrestrial, whatever you want to call it. They could be from other dimensions, whatever you want to say, but I believe in the end we're going to find out it's extraterrestrial. But let's just say, okay, could it have been, is it possible that there are sentient plants that have developed someplace on some other world? Now, you don't really hear, there's not a lot of cases out there like this. There just aren't. I mean, you read the UFO literature, you usually don't come across cases where something looks like a plant. These basically look like tree stumps with roots for legs running across the road, 3 of them that were witnessed by 2 people. Maybe that were they mistaken? Were these aliens? Were they mammalian or reptilian, and they just look like tree stumps? Nobody knows. But I guess the idea that something could be plant-based and intelligent is something to talk about. It's an interesting topic. Of course, this is something that's been you see it a lot in science fiction. There's a lot of movies, books. There was a book, The Day of the Triffids, which was made into a movie and I believe a TV series as well about meteorites that came equipped with spores, and these spores grew into these plant creatures that would kill people. And I guess they were trying to take over the earth. There was movies like The Thing from Another World from the early 1950s, from 1951, where there was a humanoid creature, but it was plant-based. It was made of vegetable matter. There were Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original one, and there were remakes of that, where these pods come from outer space, and these seed pods take on the form of human beings and replace them. There was that, and of course there was the old favorite from 1957, From Hell It Came, where actually a tree stump grew on an island because of radioactivity, where a man was buried. And I don't know if you want to watch it, because this is what the TV guide's description says about it. It says, "Wooden acting marks this lumbering tale about a monster tree stump whose bite is worse than its bark." So you might want to stay away from it. Although, if you're in the mood for some campy entertainment, that might be right up your alley. But all kidding aside, the reality is that there's the plants on this planet alone. I mean, they communicate with each other. They're trees. They're talking about trees that communicate with each other. They provide warnings. They have defense systems that they use that they're able to utilize, because they get warned about things like bugs eating them, feeding on them, and they'll communicate if there's a tree that's getting attacked by some sort of an insect. It could warn the other trees around it in a forest. Hey, look at what's happening. You might want to. It's amazing, right? But they'll send messages through the roots, right? Other trees nearby will start secreting some things to attract other insects, perhaps, and those other insects will come there and eat the insects that are eating the trees. I mean, there's things that plants do that's amazing, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I just want to point out too, you have to think there are over 700 quintillion planets in the universe that we know of, right? That's what they estimate, 700 quintillion. And keep in mind, 1 quintillion equals 1,000,000 trillions. So with that in mind, anything's possible, I would think. I mean, on this planet alone, scientists say there are 8.75 million different separate life forms. 8.75 million separate life forms on this planet alone. That's so. When you keep that in mind and you consider that there are over 700 quintillion other planets in the universe, anything's possible. Is it possible that some plant form of plant life on some other planet, given under certain circumstances, is it possible that it could become sentient at some point, or through evolution? Is it possible? I think anything's possible. I mean, why not? I mean, look at the life on this planet alone, and some of the plants. I mean, they communicate. Do they think like we do? No. They don't. They don't think. They don't think. They don't have brains. They don't have. So obviously that's something that. But over time, is it something that could be developed in plant life? I think anything's possible when you're talking about over 700 quintillion planets, and given the right circumstances. I mean, on this planet alone, for instance, there are around 630 carnivorous plants. 630 carnivorous plants, and the reason that happened is because they evolved that way, because where they were growing at, there wasn't enough of certain nutrients, so they needed to do something. So over time, they evolved so they could catch prey and eat them. So that's interesting. We'll read a little bit about that. This is here's an article from the Natural History Museum in the United Kingdom, and the headline reads, "Carnivorous Plants, the Meat Eaters of the Plant World." And it talks about all different kinds of carnivorous plants. So anyway, we'll read a little bit of this article. It says, carnivorous plants attract, trap, and digest animals for the nutrients they contain. There are currently around 630 species of carnivorous plant known to science. Although most meat-eating plants consume insects, larger plants are capable of digesting reptiles and small mammals. Smaller carnivorous plants specialize in single-celled organisms such as bacteria and protozoa. And aquatic examples also eat crustaceans, mosquito larvae, and small fish. Carnivory is such an efficient adaptation that it has evolved independently several times, and it occurs in unrelated plant families. But while it's great for a nutrient top-up, carnivory doesn't replace the need for photosynthesis and root systems. Being carnivorous simply helps the plants make the most of all available resources. And they live in all different parts of the world. We're going to just talk about a couple of them here. I just think that it's interesting that plants, because of they're not getting the nutrients they needed, that's why they evolved over time to become carnivorous. And there's different kinds of carnivorous plants. It says here, though there are hundreds of species, each with unique adaptations, carnivorous plants can be classified into 5 groups based on their trapping methods: pitfall, adhesive, snap, snare, and suction. And then it talks about pitfall traps. That's like the pitcher-shaped plants, where it looks like a pitcher and a bug or an insect or something will get on the edge of this pitcher and then slide into the bottom and can't get out, and then the plant just slowly absorbs it. It says here, pitfall-type traps are formed by a single leaf or rosettes forming tubular or pitcher-shaped traps. Prey is drawn to nectar at the pitcher rim. A slippery substance at the rim causes prey to lose its footing and slip into the base, which is filled with digestive fluid. Very interesting. And then they have different examples of those kinds of plants. And then they have adhesive trap plants. They talk about that. And they have a picture of one here of what they look like. And adhesive traps lure insects and other small prey with sweet, sticky droplets that look like nectar or dewdrops. Small insects are immobilized by the sticky slime, and larger victims may struggle to break free, coating themselves further in the mucilage. Death is usually indirect via suffocation. Nice. Some varieties of adhesive traps will actively curl their sticky tentacles around struggling victims. Yeah, very interesting. And then there's snap traps. And that's we're talking about the Venus fly, things like the Venus flytrap. It says some carnivorous plants catch their prey in snap-closing traps made of modified leaf blades, drawn by the promise of a flower. The insect or small reptile entering the trap stimulates sensitive trigger hairs. These send an electrophysiological impulse to snap the leaf blade shut and ensnare the visitor. Once a meal is secured, the leaf secretes a digestive fluid to resorb the animal protein. Very, very interesting. And then there's snare traps. Disguised as safe and delicious root structures, snare traps specialize in capturing single-celled organisms such as protozoans and ciliates, which they attract through chemicals. Organisms enter the snare trap through opening slits and tubular projections, and unidirectional hairs shepherd the tiny organisms into a digestive bladder. And then finally, the suction traps. Suction traps are a feature of many aquatic carnivorous plants. Prey animals are drawn to lures at the trap entrance that mimic food or shelter. A prey's proximity to the trap entrance triggers a valve trapdoor to open into a hollow bladder, creating suction that then flushes the prey inside. The trapdoor then quickly swings shut, and the entrance is sealed with slime to prevent escape. See how nice that is? Yes. So yes, there's I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it's all about food. I mean, everything. I mean, when you really think about it, right? The human race, the biggest concern is sustenance. That's what it all boils down to. We all do things to obtain sustenance. Yeah, we need roofs over our head and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, we need food. We need food to survive, and that's what happens here in the on this planet when it comes to plants. They have to figure out how they're going to survive, how they're going to get the nutrients they're going to need, and over time, through evolution, they develop those means. And sometimes it causes some of these plants to become carnivorous. And so you have to wonder, is it possible that maybe on other planets they take another step and they somehow pull themselves out of the ground, roots and all, and become sentient beings? Is that possible? Well, it might be, based on that story from 1966. If what they saw were actual tree stumps with roots for legs crossing the road, then you have to start asking those kinds of questions. And it's when you think about in the grand scheme of things, I think anything's possible when you're talking about over 700 quintillion planets, so on and so forth, and just all the crazy life forms just on this planet alone. I mean, think about all the life forms that when you're watching a documentary about different life forms in the ocean, it's stuff you never even saw before. You couldn't even imagine. Alien looking. That stuff looks alien looking. So I think anything's possible. And then of course there's plants. They talk. They communicate. I mean, that's one thing that they seem to do. I mean, here was an article from the Smithsonian Magazine talking about how forest trees communicate with each other. And there's a guy, a forester and author, Peter Wolleben. He was talking about this in an article, and I'll leave the links for all these articles so you can check them out for yourself. But according to that article, he says some are calling it the wood wide web. All the trees here and in every forest, according to Peter Wolleben, that is not too damaged, are connected to each other through underground fungal networks. Trees share water and nutrients through the networks and also use them to communicate. They send distress signals about drought and disease, for example, or insect attacks, and other trees alter their behavior when they receive these messages. Scientists call these mycorrhizal networks, the fine hair-like root tips of trees joined together with microscopic fungal filaments to form the basic links of the network, which appears to operate as a symbiotic relationship between trees and fungi, or perhaps an economic exchange. As a kind of fee for the services, the fungi consume about 30% of the sugar that trees photosynthesize from sunlight. The sugar is what fuels the fungi as they scavenge the soil for nitrogen, phosphorus, and other mineral nutrients, which are then absorbed and consumed by the trees. For young saplings in a deeply shaded part of the forest, the network is literally a lifeline. Lacking the sunlight to photosynthesize, they survive because big trees, including their parents, pump sugar into their roots through the network. Wolleben likes to say that mother trees suckle their young, which both stretches a metaphor and gets the point across vividly. So, I mean, you get the idea. And of course, there's another article here. This is from hiddenvalleyhibiscus.com, and it talks about plant communication. And it says, yes, it's true. Plants actually do communicate. We all know one or two of those somewhat nutty people who talk to their plants. Okay, so maybe some of us actually are those nutty people who talk to their plants. However, none of us really think our plants talk back to us. Well, sure, they wilt or drop leaves to tell us they feel bad. They perk their leaves up and glisten to tell us they feel good, and so on and so forth. But the plants communicate. They said one interesting thing plants communicate to each other is who they are. No one is not yet sure how this is done, but we do know that plants are able to recognize plants that are siblings, podmates, plants that are the same species but not close relatives, and plants that are total strangers. They then react accordingly. They compete vigorously when a plant is a stranger, growing long invasive roots that stretch out farther and farther, trying to fill up the root space and drive the other plant out. We've all seen weeds do exactly this in our gardens, but we didn't realize it was intentional. By contrast, when a plant is a sibling, both plants grow much more shallow roots, allowing the sibling plant to use equal amounts of space and to support each other. They grow extra long, intertwined branches and leaves. So you see how it is. Plants communicate friendship. They communicate hostility. According to this section of the article, it says, on the other hand, if a noxious predatory living thing attacks the plant, plants send out signals that are hostile and drive predators away, kill them, or make the soil unbearable so the predators slowly dwindle away. For many plants, the defensive communication system works all over the plant, not just in the roots. Amazingly, sometimes when only one plant in a group is being attacked by a pest, that plant is able to communicate what is going on to the other plants in the group, and all the plants then put up their defenses against the predator. In the case of aphids, which are little insects, for example, some plants secrete a chemical that attracts bugs that eat aphids. Roots can also send chemicals to leaves to make them taste bad to predators, to thicken their waxy coat, to make it harder for predators to cut into the leaves, and they often produce toxins that kill or disable predators in the soil. So you see, I mean, I'm just giving you some examples here. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to plant life on this planet, on what's going on. A lot of us don't sit around and thinking about this all the time. But I thought about this. I started thinking about this, when I was reading this article about these apparent tree stump aliens. I mean, there was a craft. They saw these three creatures. They look like tree stumps with roots for legs crossing a road. And then they have all this other strange activity that happened afterward. Is it possible, I guess? Is it possible that some plant life, probably maybe from some other world somewhere, the right process happened to allow for this. The right evolutionary process occurred to allow for some form of plant life to become sentient and create craft that could travel through space? It sounds fantastic, but I don't know. It could be. It's something to think about. And there's one other thing I want to talk about here. There was this book that was published back in 1889. It was an encyclopedia, basically, 800 pages long, and it was written by J.W. Buell. It was published in 1889. It was called Sea and Land, an illustrated history of the wonderful and curious things of nature existing before and since the deluge. And this book is extremely interesting. But one of the things it talks about is a man-eating tree that was reported by a lot of different explorers that the author apparently interviewed when he was putting this book together. Now, there was a story of this tree in Africa called the Madagascar tree, but it was actually that story that was from the 1800s too, and that was from a fictional book. It was a fictional account of this man-eating tree. And at some point, actually, it was used by some news outlets to report as if it was real, and that was just a hoax. But this was different. This is something different. He was talking about this strange tree that they call the Yatavio tree. That's what, or the Yatavio plant. That's what they call it, the Yatavio, and it means "I see you." And this was something that apparently was witnessed in South America. But anyway, I just want to read this segment and then talk about this and show you this image, this drawing that was in this book, because it's really fascinating. Now, I'm not sure. Now, I've never heard of anything like this before. I don't think that something like this could be true. But who knows? Anyway, this section of the book is headlined, "A Man-Eating Plant. Travelers have told us of a plant which they assert grows in Central Africa and also in South America that is not contented with the myriad of large insects which it catches and consumes, but its voracity extends to making even humans its prey. This marvelous vegetable, minotaur, is represented as having a short, thick trunk from the top of which radiate giant spines, narrow and flexible, but of extraordinary tenaciousness, the edges of which are armed with barbs or dagger-like teeth. Instead of growing upright or at an inclined angle from the trunk, these spines lay their outer ends upon the ground, and so gracefully are they distributed that the trunk resembles an easy couch with a green drapery around it. The unfortunate traveler, ignorant of the monstrous creation which lies in his way, and curious to examine the strange plant, or to rest himself upon its inviting stalk, approaches without a suspicion of his certain doom. The moment his feet are set within the circle of the horrid spines, they rise up like gigantic serpents and entwine themselves about him until he is drawn upon the stump, when they speedily drive their daggers into his body and thus complete the massacre. massacre. The body is crushed until every drop of blood is squeezed out of it and becomes absorbed by the gore-loving plant, which the dry carcass is thrown out and the horrid trap set again. A gentleman of my acquaintance, who for a long time resided in Central America, affirms the existence of such a plant as I have here briefly described, except that instead of the filaments or spines resting on the ground, he says they move themselves constantly in the air, like so many huge serpents in an angry discussion, occasionally darting from side to side as if striking at an imaginary foe. When their prey comes within reach, the spines reach out with wonderful sagacity, if I may be allowed to apply the expression to a vegetable creature, and grasp it in an unyielding embrace, from whence it issues only when all the substance of its body is yielded up. In its action of exerting pressure upon its prey, this dreadful plant resembles the instrument used in the Dark Ages for inflicting a torturous death. It was made of 2 long iron cylinders, on the inside of which were sharp projecting pikes. The victim was placed inside, and the 2 cylinders then brought forcibly together, thus driving 100 or more of the pointed pikes into all parts of his body and producing a frightful death. Generally, this inquisitorial instrument was made, somewhat crudely, to represent a woman. Hence the name applied to it was the Maiden, by which it is still known. Dr. Antonio Jose Marquez, a distinguished gentleman of the city of Barranquilla in the United States of Colombia, is describing this wonderful plant to the author, affirms that when excited it violently agitates its long, tentacle-like stems, the edges of which, rasping upon each other, produce a hissing noise which resembles the Spanish expression yativio, the literal translation of which is I see you. The plant is therefore known in South America by the name yativio. He further asserts that so poisonous are the stems that if the flesh of any animal be punctured by the sharp barbs, a rapidly eating ulcer immediately forms, for which there is no known antidote, and death speedily ensues. It is a singular thing. And much to be deplored if such a voracious plant exists, that we can find no description of it in the most elaborate works on botany. And yet hundreds of responsible travelers declare they have frequently seen it, and not only watched it when in a normal condition, but one African explorer declares he once witnessed the destruction of a native who was accidentally caught by one. It has also been asserted that the fan country of Africa, criminals and those convicted of practicing witchcraft are sometimes fed alive to this man-eating plant, all of which, however, I am inclined to doubt. Not that there is no foundation for such statements as travelers sometimes make about this astonishing growth, but that the facts are greatly exaggerated. Yes. Now, of course, to this day, there has been no plant, no tree, no carnivorous tree identified like this, that has been described like this, that was in this book. But you get the picture. I think, here's the thing. Whether this is real or not, which I don't think it is. I think it was just an exaggerated stories. And this crazy image here, with this crazy drawing from it, I mean, it looks horrifying. It looks something out of a horror movie or something. That's what it looks like. I don't think that that's real, but I mean, it's just something to think about. I mean, if there are plants, on this planet, they communicate with each other. They give warnings. They make other plants, other invasive plants, try to go away. They try to push them out. They try to make bugs not feed on them. They do things to make that not happen. There's just things that they're doing, and they could communicate with each other. And plus some of them are carnivorous. It makes you wonder, under the right conditions, could there be some plant that could evolve into a sentient creature that thinks? That's the question. And you wonder if those creatures that were seen by 2 young girls back in 1966 in Oregon, were they plant-based creatures, or were they just, most extraterrestrials you hear about, they're humanoid in shape. These, what they described, were not humanoid in shape, and they were wearing suits, it looked like, too. They weren't just plants with roots for legs, tree stumps with roots for legs. They had some sort of multicolored clothing on. Is it possible? I guess anything's possible in this universe. I mean, I would think that it could be. I mean, I'm not saying that it is. I'm not here to tell you. I'm just relating this story that and sometimes people see weird things, weirder than with some of the weird things other people have seen. And sometimes, who knows? Sometimes maybe there is something out there that's plant-based and sentient and can think and could build technology, build spacecraft and fly through space or whatever, right? Is it possible? Anything's possible. Anyway, I just thought that was something interesting to talk about. I'm going to move on here. I want to get caught up on all the polls that have been running on Spotify. I haven't talked about them recently. We're going to go all the way back to the episode Gettysburg Man Conjured 8 to 10 foot tall shadowy mantis alien into bedroom during CE5 experiment. I asked this question, and there were 44 votes so far. The question is, would you ever try CE5 techniques to attract UFOs and or UFO occupants? 44 votes, 16 people or 36.4% say no, while 28 people or 63.6% say yes. I don't know. I mean, I think I'd go with the yeses on this one. Yeah, I never tried it. I never tried that, but I'm not sure if I want to. Maybe. I might try it someday, see what happens. I don't know. All right, and then for the episode comments on Mellon's forward to Lou Elizondo's new book, Imminent, I asked this question. Do you believe all extraterrestrial/NHI beings are good and here to help humankind? 57 votes so far. Wow. Only 2 people, or 3.5%, said yes. 21 people, or 36.8%, says, I don't know. And a vast majority, 34 people, or 59.6%, say no. So most people, they do not believe all extraterrestrials are good and here to help mankind. I have to agree with the majority on this one. Yes, no. I mean, no. Yeah. No. I can't see it. I don't know, but I can't see how everything could be good and here to help us. No. Could there be some? Yes, but not all. I think you'd be stupid to think that all of them would be like that. Okay, for the demons from hell hypothesis, I asked this question. Do you believe demons from hell account for UFO sightings and alien encounters? 57 votes so far. 6 people, or 10.5%, say yes. 12 people, or 21.1%, say maybe sometimes. And the majority, 39 people, or 68.4%, say no. I agree with the majority. I don't think it's demons from hell. Or I don't think it's angels from heaven either. I do not believe that. I know there's some people who do, and hey, I'm not saying I'm right, but here's the thing. There's some people that have been commenting on my show, especially with a lot of the Vegas evidence that I've been presenting, and they're seeing it, and they're saying demons, demonic, all kinds. There's different kinds of comments I get received from people, and they're asserting, they're making assertions that that's what it is. I don't know how you could do that. I mean, I don't even though I call my show Extraterrestrial Reality, I concede the fact that I could be wrong. Right? Just like you could be wrong. And that's why we need to investigate it. That's when when you hear this stuff, like in Lou Elizondo's new book, Imminent, about top people in the Pentagon saying that there's no point in doing anything because they're demons from hell. Well, then that's concerning to me. You need to still look into it and study it and be concerned about it, right? You still need to do your due diligence, right? So that's why you don't know that for a fact. You do not know that for a fact. Okay, that's want to point that out. That's why maybe sometimes, yeah, that's fine, right? We just don't know. It's like I even though I say I believe that they're coming from other planets, I do concede the fact that I could be wrong. They could be crypto-terrestrials. They could be interdimensional or whatever, right? So I think that's where everybody should be on this. We just don't know. We know there's something here. That's what we could say. We know there's something here. We see their craft, and now we see them. We see them now too. We know it. We know. We have an idea, right? We see at least some of them. As we all know. There's no point in getting into all of that today. Okay, for the next one, let's see here. What was the next episode? For the episode UFOs, Bigfoot, and the Peddler's Grave, I asked this question. Is Bigfoot real? 35 votes. 10 people, or 28.6%, say no, while 25 people, or 71.4%, say yes. I agree with the majority. I think there is some sort of a cryptid creature out there. I believe there's a Bigfoot creature. There's just been too many people who have seen something like this over the years. I talked to someone personally one time, and I believe the story. I think that the Patterson Gimlin footage is real. So I believe that there's a Bigfoot creature out there, and we have yet to get the absolute end all evidence for that one. But I think at some point we will. Maybe I mean, there's a lot of people. Some people believe that we need to shoot one to prove it. And then some people say, no, that would be wrong. And maybe, the best thing that could happen would be to find a dead one, find one that's already dead. That would be pretty good. Yeah, I'm against shooting one too. I don't know about that, just to prove it. Maybe, tranquilizing one perhaps, but, not killing it. We don't know. They could, I just don't know about that one. And okay, for the episode, the debate should be over. There's an alien presence on Earth. I ask this question. Have you accepted the fact that there is an extraterrestrial / NHI presence on Earth, or are you wishy-washy about it? Okay, there's 45 votes so far. 4 people, or 8.9%, say they're wishy-washy. 41 people, or 91.1%, they accepted it. Yeah, I've accepted this a long time ago, so of course I go with the majority on this one. Of course, I'm with the majority on this one. Okay, for the episode, 3 women abducted by aliens in Kentucky / farmer finds UFO, and this was a Spotify specific episode, right? Because I combined 2. I've been doing this new show called Alien Encounters, and I combined those 2 episodes. You can find both of them on YouTube separately, and on Spotify they're together. Anyway, the episode, 3 women abducted by aliens in Kentucky / farmer finds UFO and green penguin-like aliens near barn. I asked this question. Of the 2 stories presented, which one did you find the most interesting? 21 votes so far. Okay, 1 person, or 4.8%, said penguin aliens on farm. 5 people, or 23.8%, say Kentucky alien abduction. They thought that one was the more interesting one. Another 5 people, or 23.8%, say both stories stunk. And then the majority, 10 people, 47.6%, say they both were equally interesting. Yeah, I'm going to go with the equally interesting. They were really interesting, both of them. I mean, I never heard something like penguin-like aliens. That was interesting. And the 3 women abducted by aliens story, that was really good. So yeah, I'm gonna go. Both were pretty interesting to me. Okay, so yeah, again, I'm with the majority again. Okay, for the episode New Discoveries Made in Las Vegas Alien Video, I asked this question. How many extraterrestrial / NHI creatures do you believe were in the Kenmore family's backyard during the incident last year? 38 votes so far. 5 people, or 13.2%, say 2 or less. 8 people, or 21.1%, say more than 10. 9 people, or 23.7%, say none. And 16 people, or 42.1%, say 3 to 10. I don't know. A lot of the stuff I think it's actually, well, it's either the 3 to 10 or the more than 10. I'm not sure which one. I'm wishy-washy on this one, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of haters out there. That's another thing too. There's a lot of people people have been discouraged. So some people I've been getting discouraged by some people to talk about the Vegas alien case anymore. And that's not going to happen. I'm still going to talk about it. So, that's all I have to say about it. Yeah, there's some people who are trying to make me stop talking about this. I'm not going to. It's the biggest story of all time. We have proof. Okay, let's see here. What's the next one? For the episode, The Las Vegas Alien Rabbit Hole Deepens, I asked this question. Have you ever experienced poltergeist-like activity in your home? 49 votes so far. 18 people, or 36.7%, say yes, while 31 people, or 63.3%, say no. I have to go with the no's too, because I don't think I really have had poltergeist activity, except unless you want to talk about that incident in Hawaii with the disappearing, reappearing dog. Is that poltergeist? I don't know. I don't know what to say. But a good 18 people, 36.7%, say they have. So that's a lot. That's a lot of people saying they have had poltergeist activity in their homes. That's interesting. And of course, as we know, just like in the case we just talked about here earlier with the tree stumps, sometimes people experience poltergeist activity for some reason. We don't know what that's all about. Okay, what's the next one? For the episode, did the ET presence stage the Vegas alien incident to introduce themselves to the world? I asked this question. Did the Vegas alien incident happen because the NHI needed to make an emergency landing, or did the NHI stage it on purpose? 31 votes so far. Okay, 2 people, or 6.5%, say deliberately staged. 12 people, or 38.7%, say other. And the majority of people, 17 people, or 54.8%, say emergency landing. I agree with the majority. Again, that's all of this is just speculation, right? But I think that that's probably what happened, the emergency landing, and they got caught with their pants down, and that's why we have them on video now. So that's where I'm at with that one. I agree with the majority on that one. Okay, what's the next one here? For the episode Las Vegas Aliens, The Creatures in the Cab, I asked this question. Of the choices below, which is most likely to turn out to be real? Okay, 2 people, or 6.1%, say Loch Ness Monster. 5 people, or 15.2%, say Bigfoot Yeti. And 26 people, or 78.8%, say interdimensional beings. I was just curious on where everyone stood with this question. I was thinking about it. What do more people believe? More people believe in interdimensional beings than Bigfoot. Hardly anybody here believes in the Loch Ness Monster. Now, let me just say something about the Loch Ness Monster. One of the issues with that whole thing is that, I mean, you're basically, it's a landlocked kind of situation. I mean, it's localized to that one place in Scotland, right? That's it. I mean, that's the only place where anybody's ever going to have a chance to see the Loch Ness Monster as if you're there. So there's not nearly as many eyeballs on the loch as on Loch Ness as there are for over the rest of the world. That's why there's much more chance to see. I didn't include extraterrestrials in there. Or NHI or anything like that. I just wanted to see I wanted to find out what people think about interdimensional beings. I was curious. So more people believe there's more of a chance of the interdimensional beings being real. I don't know about that one. I don't know. I think I actually agree with the Bigfoot yet. I would actually go with the mid one, the mid vote. Bigfoot Yeti. I'm going to go with the 5 people that say I think there's more of a chance of Bigfoot Yeti. I think that we're going to find out. Again, doesn't make me right. I think we're going to find out that that these things are coming from other planets, that they're not coming from other dimensions. But then again, I could be wrong. I mean, just look at that Vegas video. It looks like they're phasing in and out of other dimensions at some point. But I think actually it's probably some sort of cloaking technology or ability that they have, that they possess. Okay, and then finally the last one. For the episode, one of the Las Vegas aliens looks like an Allagash 4 abductor. I asked this question. Do you believe the NHI involved in the Las Vegas alien incident are also the same types that abduct human beings against their will? 26 votes so far. 5 people, or 19.2%, say not sure. 6 people, or 23.1%, say no. And the majority, 15 people, or 57.7%, say yes. To me, they look like it. They look like it. I have to agree with the majority on this one. I mean, you look like the gang's all there. I mean, the gang's all there. It looks like the tall ones could potentially be the praying mantis or ants kind, or whatever you want to call it, the insectoid tall ones. Looks like there was a small gray there. I mean, I think UB, the undeniable backbreaker, I think he's a small gray. It looks and some of the other analysis I've done, looks like it was loaded with them. It looks like there was small ones and tall ones there. I mean, I think they look like the ones that people have described during abduction events, and and I think that in that one frame, I had in the thumbnail there, it looked like that creature by the heavy equipment there, by the front loader, looked like the same kind of thing that was one of the same creatures that abducted one of the people, the Allagash 4. And you read books by David Jacobs, this is how they're described. Looks like the gang was all there. They look like the abducting ones. That's what they look like to me. who knows what was going on there? Sometimes I wonder, maybe our military shot at this thing, and that's why it fell down from the sky. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's what they're doing, secretly trying to fight these things, and that's why it came making that hard landing. It didn't, Yeah, that was another thing. I got a question from somebody. I got a couple of questions, the same question, saying, what happened to the craft? How come nobody filmed the craft as it flew away? Well, we don't know. You have to remember, when they saw something coming down. They saw this lighted thing come down in their yard, and then they heard this big thump. And when they heard that big thump, everything in that area became blurry, like became invisible. And according to one of the witnesses, when he looked in that area, it was blurry and he couldn't see anything. But when he looked at other parts of the yard, it wasn't blurry. And he also said he heard thousands of footsteps going off in all different directions. So I don't know how it got out of there. Now, there was a report that there were 2 UFOs flying around that area after that thing went down. I've talked about that in previous episodes. Did it need to get towed out of there by those 2 UFOs? Is that how it got out of there? Or did they make repairs, the ones that were there? Did they make repairs to it and they were able to get out themselves? Who knows? I don't know. But apparently it was gone by the time the police showed up. After they called 911, it took them the police at least an hour to show up. So who knows? Anything could have happened in that time. And maybe the family members were in the house for a little while after that incident when they filmed it. And during that time when they were in the house, maybe that's when it flew away. Or maybe those other UFOs that were seen by at least one witness hovering around that area, maybe they caused it they were the ones who got it out of there. Who knows? This is all speculation. We have no idea why it came down there in the first place. All of it is speculation. The only thing that we do know is that something did come down there because we see it. We saw the video from the different videos all over the place, right? We had the body cam footage. We had the security camera footage. We had camera footage from a moving vehicle. There's all different video of the thing coming down. The witnesses said something landed in their yard, and we also have video evidence that shows that there were creatures in the yard that weren't human. Well, we have it. We already know it. So something obviously came down. How it got out of there, who knows? But I mean, I'm sure that they have, just like we have tow trucks when we break down on the side of the highway. I'm sure these things have better than that. I'm sure whatever they got, it's better than that. So, I mean, you have to use your imagination. Who knows? Nobody filmed anything going away. As far as I know, I haven't seen any video of some object flying off. I mean, I don't know. The family was scared out of their minds. Who knows? So who knows what happened? Anyway, I want to say, I'm going to wrap it up here. I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.